Before we jump into this podcast, let's just have a first word from our sponsors, NordVPN, the fastest VPN in the world and an absolute essential travelling companion. You can use NordVPN on 10 devices with just one account, easily switching your virtual location to access apps and websites in other countries. But if you're out of the country, make sure that you've got NordVPN to be able to use your subscriptions and watch the live sport that you might miss. If you're at home, use it to see if you can save money with products that might be cheaper in another region. Go to nordvpn.com/Manchester to get 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. The link is also in the podcast description. Hello and welcome to the Manchester is Red podcast, this edition of the Midweek Debate with me, myself, Steven Railston and Tyrone Marshall. We're back in the office today. The work has been done. There's some construction going on, and thankfully, we're not freezing in this episode, Ty, because the heaters have actually been put on as well. That's a relief, isn't it?
You're
doing the Cole Palmer there if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Stephen. Yeah.
Did you have a good weekend?
Very good. Yeah, it was nice. I was at City Liverpool yesterday. Yeah. You had the joys of the last trip to Goodison Park, if you can call it joys. Yeah, it was pretty.
Well, I felt it was
pretty good. I'll be honest. I barely saw any of the United game. Right. My 5-year-old has got into football in a ridiculous way in the last few months, and all he wanted to do from about midday till 4 o'clock was play on the field outside our house on Saturday. So
and what he wants, he does get. Usually.
What he wants, he gets. Man. Yeah. That's the way with 5-year-old children, unfortunately.
I felt your age on Friday night because I was obviously 21. Getting up. I was doing the game very early on the Saturday morning with it being an early kick-off. So I think I was in bed by 8:30, just watching some Severance. Do you know what? I wasn't too fussed though. I was quite relaxed. And then an early start, nice drive across to Goodison. The weather the sun was brilliant. It came out. It felt like summer. And a 12:30 kickoff is really ideal, especially when it's just across a Merseyside. Half an hour, 40-minute drive. Fantastic.
Those 12:30 games are brilliant.
Yeah, it really is a dream.
Maybe we had swapped roles on Friday night then, because I was out in town. I didn't get home until about 1 o'clock and had to be up at 8 o'clock for junior football. So yeah, I was a bit of a fuzzy head on Saturday. So maybe we've.
I'd not want to walk in your boots permanently, but maybe just for one night.
Pretty much already are doing.
Right, let's actually debate some topics. I think. We do try to debate some topics. I'm not sure we had many disagreements on the last podcast, did we? But we're going to get into a few transfer bits. So we're going to focus on transfers in the first part. And as usual, in the second part, it's going to be a bit more relaxed. We'll look back at Goodison Park and chat a bit about that. But we'll start with Paul Pogba, Ty. Because all of a sudden, Paul Pogba has been linked with a return to United. Having said that, I will caveat that there hasn't been any credible reports. It has just been kind of a load of waffle, you would appear to think. But we are going to talk about it because United fans are talking about it too. What do you think? He left the club in 2022 upon the expiry of his contract. His last game was against Norwich. He cupped his ear to the fans who told him to F off.
Last game against Liverpool, wasn't it? Did he not play against Liverpool?
I think at home, was it not against Norwich that game?
I thought Liverpool was after that, wasn't it?
Let me check.
I'm sure because he played against Liverpool and went off injured after 10 minutes.
Yeah, so it would have been the last home game, last home game against Norwich. And he was booed off. So he went out in a disgrace, really, at Old Trafford. It would be a big shock to see him back. I'd not have him back at the club. Would you?
No. I mean, we were throwing about some ideas for a debate this morning, and you mentioned Paul Pogba. And is that going to be a debate? It feels like it's going to be a very quick one. No, I don't think it makes sense on any...
level at all.
On any level, really. I mean, Amorim was asked on Friday, actually, about whether he was looking at free agents and shot it down pretty quickly. And obviously, he's not going to say, oh, actually, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm looking at Paul Pogba now you mention it. But I just don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. I don't think he fits the system. And the biggest issue is he's not played in...
It's late
2 years,
2023, yeah, so around 18 months.
18 months at least he's not played. By the time he's fit, it's going to be the end of the season. Nothing about it makes any sense. So... No, I don't see it happening. And don't think it'd be a good
when
idea.
We were talking about what we could possibly debate, I did say, you said, I presume you agree with me.
Yes, I thought I better check.
Yeah. And I said, well, I wish I had a bit of a crazy opinion and it would make for a more entertaining podcast and a more entertaining conversation. Look, he was found to have elevated testosterone levels, I think it was, in late 2023. His ban is then being reduced. So he's available to play from March. As you said, you could look at the free agent market. And United do need new signings, but Paul Pogba just does not make sense because he has not kicked a football in a long time. And even when he did, he was below the level required then. I mean, he was really poor for United in his final kind of season. Obviously, it was a really bad campaign. His performances on a whole in his whole time at the club, his return, were very inconsistent. And he did not look the same player when he was at Juventus again for his second spell in Italy.
No, and obviously, he had some pretty serious stuff going on in his personal life with the whole blackmailing thing and his brother being involved. I mean, that sounded...
Just a normal day in the Marshall household, isn't it?
Me and the Pogbas.
Hand in hand, yeah, hand in hand.
That sounded pretty horrendous. But yeah, he's, and it's not... I don't think it's a position United are desperate for strength in. I mean, I think the Fernandes-Ugarte partnership has looked all right. It was Ugarte and Casemiro on Sunday. I mean, really, they need Diego Costa more than Paul Pogba if they're going to look at a free agent. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think they're going to waste any money doing it, to be honest, because that's the other thing to bear in mind. That I think I mentioned previously, the wages they're saving is about £1 million a month since the January business with Anthony and Rashford going. It's going to be £5 to £6 million saving by the end of the year. They don't want to waste some of that on signing Paul Pogba for, what might get 400 minutes or something by the time he's back fully fit. Just a total waste of time.
And he'd probably play him one of the number 10 roles, wouldn't he? You wouldn't really see him as a deeper line midfielder, would you?
To be honest,
in that system.
I think
he's a 6 and 8, isn't he? That kind of blend.
Yeah,
Again,
if he was next to someone like Ugarte, like for France when he was next to Kante, was probably his best football. So I don't know, maybe you could make an argument that next to Ugarte he would look good.
He's 31 now.
Is he only 31?
He's 31.
Yeah.
He's only 31, did you say? Do you think he would have been older than that?
Yeah, I think I did, to be honest.
Right,
I thought
okay.
I'd be more like 33. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes and if he can get any of that kind of quality back. But let's be honest, it was disastrous when United spent 89 million on him.
Exactly. I'd be very surprised if he rocked up at a top European club. You could kind of see him. I think he was into Miami the other night, although surely they will not have room for him on the wage bill, considering Messi, Jordi Alba, etc. Busquets is there as well. I think Suarez, I think they've got the whole band across there, really, the Barcelona band. Come on then, we'll move on after that enthralling debate about Paul Pogba. More specifically with transfers, which positions do you think should be the priority for the summer? It's an interesting question, that, because you look at this season and you could argue they need a new player at almost every position.
Yeah, you've stolen my punchline there, because I was going to say goalkeeper, right wing back, not a left wing back, 3 centre backs, 2 midfield. But no, they don't need everything. But I think half a dozen starters, maybe a bit, maybe 4 starters, 5 starters. I mean, I think they still need another wing back. I think probably another midfielder still, either a deep lying one to play next to Ugarte, probably at least a deep lying one, to be honest, because Casemiro's, I mean, they've got to find a way to get rid of Casemiro. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they've got to find a way to get rid of him. And then probably at least another number 10. I still think there's got to be a good chance Garnacho's going to go, or at least one of Garnacho or Mainoo's going to go. So probably one of them is going to need replacing. They clearly need a striker. So
they need that spine, don't they? I think a striker, a midfielder, and they're going to need a centre half. There's going to be departures at the back. And then their right wing back, probably. Dorgu has looked quite good, actually. I've been impressed with him in his last few appearances. He emerged with quite a lot of credit, actually, at Everton, as we'll get on the second part. But I think those 4 positions would probably be the priority for me.
I wouldn't say central defender. They've spent a fortune on central defenders in the last few years.
To
say they need another is embarrassing.
Do you know what? We've finally got a disagreement.
Just deal with what you've got. They cannot spend more money on another central defender.
But they're going to have to, because
De Ligt, Martinez, Maguire, Yoro, Heaven, Shaw, probably. I mean, Shaw's not going to go in the summer, is he?
Lindelof's going to go. Johnny
goes.
Evans is going to go. So you've got 2 senior centre halves.
I know
they've hardly played.
There's still 6 there, and the sixth is arguably Heaven.
Martinez has become injury prone. He's started to pick up a lot of injuries, and he's not going to be back until. I think they're going to have to. Aidan Heaven's 18 years old. He's had 1 senior appearance to his name in the Carabao Cup tie for Arsenal. Lenny Yoro, obviously, you think would come good. Harry Maguire, again, he's become injury prone, hasn't he? Although I think he deserved his.
I don't know.
Do you think it's harsh to describe him as injury prone? He has. I mean,
everyone in this squad.
I'm a big advocate for Maguire. I think he's done very well in the last year or so, and he's proved his quality again and showed character. But he's picked up a lot of problems.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, you don't need 7 centre backs. So if we're saying they do need a centre back, one of them has to be sold. They have to sell someone. They can't carry 7 centre backs when they haven't got any money to spend this summer. So they'll need to sell. I think if they want to sign a centre back, they've got to sell someone. They might sell Maguire. I don't know whether he'd want to go. Can't imagine anyone's going to pay great money for De Ligt. I mean, Yoro's probably the only sellable centre-back. I'm not going to want to sell him after a year.
Is that back line good enough without a new signing to kick on and do what Amorim wants to do? I feel like they need a better centre-half in there as well.
I don't know. I think I'm not sure they do. I think if you get the system working, I mean, in a way, the centre-back should be the easiest bit to do. Whether you're a centre-back playing in a 2 or a centre-back playing in a 3, doesn't really change that much. You know, we spoke to De Ligt after Van Nistelrooy's last game, I think, and he said, I've played in a 2 and a 3, and as a centre-back, it's pretty similar. So I don't think their role really changes, to be honest. I still think picking 4 from De Ligt, Martinez, Yoro and Maguire should really be good enough. And I know Martinez is going to miss the start of the season. If you can get Shaw fit and keep him fit, I think he can play that left-sided role.
But that's just a pointless suggestion, isn't it? When we always say that, if you can keep him fit, because history tells you we can't keep fit.
Yeah, I mean, history does tell us he can't stay fit.
And we all say he'd be brilliant if he can, but he can't.
You only need, he's not going to be first choice. He's going to be second choice behind Martinez. So you only need 20 games out of him. What you need is to get lucky and have the 20 games.
Martinez has become injury prone. You look at since the end of his first season, he's picked up injuries, a lot of them.
Thing is,
and they have been unlucky because
they've been unlucky. Well, they've been unlucky injuries. One of them, United mismanaged because they played him with a broken foot, a broken metatarsal. This latest one, I think
just the way he landed, wasn't it?
I think he was unlucky. So I'd be more concerned about Luke Shaw getting muscle injuries than Martinez getting some bad contact injuries and a serious knee injury that feels a bit unlucky. So he has had a few injuries. You are right, but I don't necessarily think he's injury prone in the way that Luke Shaw.
Yeah, the word injury prone suggests obviously you are prone to picking up lots of injuries. With Martinez, it's just the fact that he has picked up injuries. I'm not saying that it's a regular occurrence and it's his fault as such, but there is obviously a huge element of bad luck there.
Yeah.
But the fact is he has picked up injuries and he has missed time. I do think they need a new centre half. We both agree.
Who would you try and get rid of? I'm sure they can't carry 7 centre halves in the squad.
Well, hang on. So it would be Lindelof and Evans are gone. You'd have De Ligt, Maguire, Martinez, Yoro.
Heaven. And Shaw.
So five excluding Luke Shaw. You play a 3 at the back. Is that enough?
But that's 6 with Luke Shaw.
Well, okay, go on then. I'll put De Ligt up there. I'd rather keep Maguire over De Ligt. I've not been as critical on De Ligt as some other people have, but he hasn't had a good season.
No.
Yeah, he's not been convincing.
No, he's not. And
he wasn't good last weekend.
No, he's been hit and miss, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I also don't think you're going to get a buyer for him.
Try
and sell him this summer, you're going to get a buyer for him.
Maguire
the
would
only
probably
one of
be
those you'd be able to sell would be Yoro, and they ain't going to want to sell Yoro.
No.
And I just don't think they've got the room in the squad or the budget to sign another centre-back, really. Unless you're saying Heaven goes out on loan, then maybe you do. Or you find a way to get rid of Shaw, and then maybe you sign someone else.
And I think there is an argument to get rid of Shaw. His contract expires in 2027. If he performs from now to the remainder of the season, his market value is going to be reasonable. And if you cut your losses now, you're still going to obtain a decent fee for him. If you roll the dice one more time into the next season, chances are he probably picks up more injuries, his value depreciates, and he's almost into the last year of his contract. Yeah. So you lose power in negotiations there.
I don't know. I would say the opposite. I can't see anyone signing him this summer on the back of having played. Well, it's three substitute appearances in a year, isn't it? I think it's 60, 70, 80 minutes, something like that. Everton.
Yeah.
And he's not back in training yet, I don't think. Even when he does get back in training, it's going to be a good few weeks before he's starting games. Best case scenario, he might play 10 times between now and the end of the season, I would say. I don't think that's enough evidence for a club to sign him, to be honest. I think you're better off
give West Ham
hoping that he stays fit next season. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A club like that could take a gamble. It would require him to want to go. And I don't think you're going to get wages and transfer fee are going to be a problem. I think now people wouldn't take a risk on it. It is only 2 years ago that he had his best season for United and his longest season of staying fit for United. That first season under Ten Hag.
You say it's only 2 years ago, but still 2 years of not doing that.
Yeah, it is 2 years of not doing that, but this is the reality.
He hasn't started a game for United for a year. February 2024.
But it's also worth remembering, I never really liked these injury discussions so much. And, anytime you post anything about Luke Shaw on social media, he gets hammered. And I know the European Championship thing was obviously a mark in the sand, a line in the sand for a lot of United fans. But this isn't his fault. He's not getting injured deliberately.
And if
as disappointing as it is to a fan that he's not available, try being in Luke Shaw's shoes when the prime years of your career are unavailable. Yeah. He ain't getting this again. United let him go. Fans will just support a different player. Yeah. It's like with Phil Jones when he used to get so much criticism, and it's incredibly frustrating. But try being in Phil Jones's shoes when you had all that potential and didn't make it because your career was wrecked by injury. They ain't enjoying it. They ain't doing it on purpose. It's not that they're not doing something in their recovery. It's just that they are, injury prone. And when you're getting muscle injuries regularly, it is injury prone. So they'd need a lot of luck, I think, with Luke Shaw.
He was definitely mismanaged last season. There was games where he'd just come back from muscle injury and he was playing an average of a game every 2.5 days or every 3.5 days. And that is just asking for trouble. If you've come back from a muscle injury and you ask to accelerate your load, increase your load that much, it's stupid. But you're right. If any fan was in his shoes, major tournaments come around every 2 years. They all would have done what Luke Shaw did. Yeah. And Amrin even said a few weeks ago, he said he's done everything right. Yeah, and if he hadn't done everything right, I wouldn't be open to keeping him. No, but he has done everything right.
You'd know about it if he hadn't done everything right because they wouldn't be carried. But like I say, 2 years ago, I think he missed 3 games to injury and he played a lot of that season at left back really well. He replaced Martinez and he played centre half against Erling Haaland. But
it was 2 years ago.
And marked him out of the game. It was 2 years ago, but it's only 2 years
ago.
You
were 48 2 years ago.
He does show he can do it. So, and like I said, I just don't think you're going to get a market for him this summer. So you have no option but to keep him. Cross your fingers, hope that he's fit when Martinez isn't, and that it all sort of comes together. And I know it's not a great scenario, but given that they've got, they haven't got a pot to go to the toilet in this summer, really. Yeah, I don't think they can afford to sign a 7th centre back.
We've not really whittled down which priorities we would like to see them strengthen. But no, it was a good discussion. I mean, right wing back, I think we'll both agree they do need a player there. Diego Dallo has moved to that side recently, and you'd like to think he's more comfortable on that side, but he's struggled this year. He's had a poor season. He's regressed, hasn't he? A lot of that has been, in my opinion, because he's been on the left and in a new system, which obviously makes it difficult. But he's not exactly showed great signs of life since moving back to the right. And on top of that, watching Patrick Dorgu, a player who has been signed for Amram's system, it's no coincidence that he looks good in that system. And we've talked about on a previous episode how important the wing-back roles are in that formation. And they need a top right wing-back, don't they, to complement Dorgu on the left, you'd think.
Yeah, you'd have thought so. It does, it does feel like they need another one. I mean, it's interesting the other day when Amorim was talking about playing Dorgu on the right against Leicester, and he referred to those players as wingers and said he wants wingers that can invert in modern parlance. And he did mention Dallo amongst it. And I just thought, I don't really see him as a winger, to be honest. I'm not even sure I see him as a wing back, but I wouldn't be getting rid of him. I'd certainly give him another.
Well, he's a very good squad player, Dallo, he is. But I don't think he should be starting games United if they're in the top 4.
And I've just forgotten the centre back discussion. Are we pressing Mazraoui as a centre back now? Because I think he's even less of a wing back than Dallo.
And if you strengthen at right wing back and you get another player in, then you would look at him as a centre back, wouldn't you? Yeah. So that would damage my case of saying you are centre half. I'm never wrong. You're wrong. But lastly, then we'll briefly touch on a striker because we've talked about.
I think there's 2 positions left, which would be striker and
in midfield.
Goalkeeper. I think.
Well, that was on that. To be fair, that was on the bullet points for the podcast.
We just spent too long arguing.
If we were going to argue they can't afford to get centre half in right now, and it's not a priority right now, I would argue Onana. You have to kick the can with Onana down the road a little bit. Maybe that's a next summer job, not this summer coming up.
Yeah,
you could probably survive another season with him. So I say survive, a bit dramatic. But if you want to compete at the top of the Premier League, Onana's not that man. But are United going to be competing at the top of the Premier League next year? No. If they want to, it's going to be the year after that.
I think that's probably fair. Like you said, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? He did seem the right goalkeeper 2 years ago, but he's been too inconsistent. And the biggest criticism is that I don't think he's transformed the distribution the way that it was expected he was going to.
Remember the Champions League final, right?
Yeah,
Inter Milan, Manchester City.
I was there.
Yeah, were you there?
He was their
best player. I mean, his
yeah.
footwork was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he was just spreading the ball out, the dynamic range of passing 40 yards, 30 yards, crisp. Yeah. And we just haven't seen that, have we?
No. I remember in that game, when Inter were chasing a late goal, he was playing in front of 2 defenders at times. Like he was more trusted to create something than the 2 defenders. It was bizarre to watch it, but Guardiola had spoken about it pre-match and really talked it up. But you're just not really seeing it at United. He goes long too often, and that kind of is an issue for the strikers as well, which we'll maybe come on to. I think the only reason it's maybe an issue this summer is that you're probably going to need at least one keeper. I mean, I think, Tom Eaton's out of contract. He's going to be 39 in April, I think. He's had a couple of injuries this year. Probably call it a day. Altay Bayindir clearly wants to play and isn't going to get that opportunity.
I think he'll stay now. I think if Ten Hag had continued as manager, his policy with goalkeepers was I've got my number one, he's playing in cup competitions. But to be fair to Amram, he has given Bayindir responsibility in the FA Cup, for example, in different games. And I could see him being sweetened by that and being happy to stay. And then you've obviously got Hubert Grasic, I think you pronounce his second name, who's, I think, around 21, 22 signed for Arsenal last summer. And I could see him being promoted to number 3 because let's be honest, realistically, your number 3 goalkeeper, it's not very important, is it?
Well, you see, it has become more important. And if they did that, I can't imagine there's many, if any, Premier League clubs who have an inexperienced goalkeeper as their number 3. Maybe a few lower down the table do, but most clubs now carry someone experienced as their number 3.
Well, then the solution to that would be loan out Grasic, which is very potential. That's quite likely because he's young, and
sign
then
a free agent
getting in another
somewhere.
Experienced head. And there's been that trend, hasn't it? You're right, to be fair, that these old heads are getting these jobs. John Ruddy at Newcastle, I'm thinking of. Obviously, Scott Carson was the OG,
Tom Eaton
wasn't he?
Lee Grant.
So Scott Carson set the trend, didn't he?
He was a trendsetter, yeah. They had them, I think they had, was it? I was going to say Joe Lewis, I'm not sure that's right. Can't remember who it was at City before Scott Carson.
It wasn't Joe Lewis, but obviously Joe Lewis came and helped United train for 6 months of last season.
But it was someone else. I can't remember who. But it has become a trend, and maybe with United and the financial situation they're in, and if you can't have free lunches, then maybe you can't have a third choice goalkeeper on 25 grand either. That's a saving, and you just hope that one of your other keepers don't get injured. I mean, it'd be unusual to have. I guess it'd be unusual to have 2 injured, but United have got 2 injured at the moment. Thankfully, one of them's not Onana, but they have, for the last few games, been in a position where if anything happened to him, then it is, you're either looking at Eli Harrison or Hubert Grasic. Hubert.
You realise you mispronounced his name there.
And one of them on the bench. Yeah. And as highly rated as both, maybe, Harrison's only played for Chester. Yeah. And Hubert's only played for Slough. So it would be, if Onana got sent off 10 minutes into the game at Goodison Park, and Harrison comes on.
He's a superb prospect, Harrison. I think a lot of them, and he's got a big future ahead of him. But it's a different ball game playing in the Premier League against seasoned professionals.
And someone like Everton,
high pressure
imagine them swinging crosses onto his head.
Beto coming in and attacking balls. Yeah, it's another world, isn't it? Really. I feel like we've probably covered the transfers. I mean, in terms of
the only other one,
with strikers, I was going to say in terms of who would actually like to see coming through with strikers, because it's all well and good seeing United need a striker, and we do make the point. It's not our jobs to do that. The staff at United who are paid very well to find those players.
There's still some staff at United?
Apparently so, yeah. Okay. They might leave after they realise it's just soup on the menu, though.
Yeah, possibly. I would.
What about Jonathan David? Because he's been linked quite a lot now. He's been linked to Juventus and a few other clubs. Obviously plays for Lille. He scored 26 goals last season. He's got 20 this season. That's more than Højlund and Xerxes have scored between them in their entire time in Manchester.
Yeah.
How mental is that?
That is mad. It's funny. How old is he?
25. He's 25.
Yeah, so I don't understand why he's still at Lille when he's 25, I would say. And I don't see enough of him to know what his flaws might be, but...
I think players can mature is the word, later than what everyone expects.
Maybe.
And I quite like that when a player comes into the room in the mid-20s and starts to really thrive. And if it was just after the back of last season, I would say he needs to do it again. But his overall goal-scoring record's really good. And obviously League One, one of the poorer divisions in Europe. But he's done it in the Champions League. He scored goals against Real Madrid. He scored against Liverpool. I think someone else he scored. Atletico Madrid as well. Yeah, so there you go. There's another club. Yeah. He's done it against top teams.
Yeah, he has.
And sorry, we've missed the key part. He's available on a free transfer at the end of this season. Yeah, that's the key part.
That is the key part. If United's recruitment team are watching this, ears have just pricked up. I didn't know he was available on a free transfer actually. But I don't know. You're right. His goal scoring record has been good for quite a few, even before that 26 goal season last season. I think his goal scoring record is pretty good. And he's been linked with transfers for 3 or 4 years, but never goes anywhere. And that just kind of, I'm not a scout and I'm not watching Lille games regularly, so I'm slightly guessing here. But it always makes me wonder why a deal has never happened for him. When so many clubs have been looking for strikers in recent years, why has no one gone for him? Like, what are they seeing that maybe we're not when we're just looking at his numbers that makes them think he's not?
It does, it does seem too good to be true, and it might be. Is the honest truth.
Maybe, yeah. But looking purely at seeing clips of his goals, seeing his numbers, seeing his availability, you'd say he makes a lot of sense. But loads of teams have looked at him, and like I say, his numbers are obvious that any recruitment department needing a striker would be like, let's have a look at him. And like I say, lots of teams have needed a striker in recent years, and he's never moved, which is the only thing that makes me sort of question it, really.
It'll be fascinating to see where he leaves, where he joins in the summer,
where he goes.
And we'll come back to this if he's banging the goals in next season.
Yeah, wherever he goes, maybe at Old Trafford. But I mean, for me, there's two. If they're going to pay for someone, which they're probably going to have to, then I mean, Gyökeres is the obvious target. I'm not sure it'll happen, to be honest. Other than that, I'd say the best alternative, I think, would be Liam Delap. I think there's a lot of similarities to Gyökeres in the way he plays. I'm
not hugely inspired by Liam Delap. Watched him a lot at Manchester City. Interviewed one of his former PE teachers at the time. I think that was like 3 years ago now. And he obviously is a good prospect, and he's powerful, and he's pacey, and he puts himself about, doesn't he? He's a real menace.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And he's clearly got a lot of potential. But again, young striker. United need a proven goal scorer. Are they really going to go back and sign another?
Ain't going to happen. Who are they going to sign?
But then we're just going to have the exact same conversations next season where we're sitting here thinking they've bought another young striker.
This is their reality. This is their reality now. They had the chance to sign a proven goal scorer 2 years ago and they blew it. So I think this is the reality now.
There will be someone out there. I mean, even if it's Jonathan David, for example, like Patrick Schick, is he still by Leverkusen?
I don't think those are more a guarantee of Premier League goals than Liam Delap.
I'd rather have Schick than Liam Delap. Not long term.
Really?
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
is that a controversial statement?
Yeah, I think
kind of regretting saying it now.
Delap. I mean, Schick looks all right, but I just think Delap is. I mean, he's younger. Got to be a couple of years younger than him. He scored 9 goals, I think, for struggling Ipswich team this year.
27 now. Liam Delap is what? 22.
22. So, and I just think Delap has got the traits that Amorim wants for a striker. Amorim wants runs in behind, runs into the channel. He wants strong defenders. I mean, arguably Højlund's got the traits to do it as well, but it's just not working.
Sorry, can I address the elephant in the room? Victor Osimhen. Obviously a big name. He's on loan at Galatasaray currently from Napoli.
Yeah.
United have been linked with him. He will be available because Napoli do not want him. Conte has made it obvious. Yeah. Lukaku's a striker. We're going to sell him. So there will be an opportunity there.
Yeah.
That is the obvious name to go for.
Yeah, and his scoring record's good this season. But you would expect it to be. He looks a top player.
I know it sounds weird, but he moves like a top player. I think when you watch some players, when I watched him against Tottenham in the Europa League out of interest, I've watched him a lot over the last couple of years, but I want to see how he was now because he had a bad season. But Napoli had an awful season that year, so I don't think you can necessarily blame him on that.
What I would say is he's probably had 2 great seasons in his career, Osimhen. If you look at him before Napoli and before that title-winning season, I think his numbers were pretty average. I like the look of him.
He's 26 years old.
26 years old.
Pardon me.
I mean, I think he has had 2 good goal-scoring seasons in his career for Napoli and for Galatasaray.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Don't want to hop onto it, but we were talking about Alexander Isak before we came onto this podcast and seeing how good he is. He had a bad season at Real Sociedad, and someone took a chance on him and look at him now. In the market, you have to take a calculated gamble, don't you? You have to look at what you've got in front of you. Osimhen, I think, is the best of an uninspiring kind of market at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Again, I just wonder if there's some baggage there. Things turned very sour very quickly for him at Napoli.
That can happen with Conte, come on.
It can happen with Conte, yeah. It's a fair point, I guess. The fact he ended up at Galatasaray rather than moving anywhere else.
Well, he agreed personal terms with Chelsea. I think the fee was the stumbling block. He also was set to go to Saudi Arabia. The transfer window closed. He was kind of left in a bad place. And
Galatasaray was the only option.
Yeah, had to join Galatasaray.
And their tax rate means it's a very lucrative place for European footballers to go. Yeah, I do think he's a good player. Like I said, I don't think we've seen the consistency from him, but then you haven't with Delap. But I just think if they could get Osimhen, then it'd probably be good. But he's gonna cost more than Delap, and he's gonna want more wages than Delap. Delap would be something of a gamble, but if it was between Delap, Hoyland and Xerxes to lead the line for United, it'd be Delap by a million miles for me.
It has to be someone proven for me. I know that's easier said than done.
I just don't
But
think
it has to be someone in their
that ship
mid-20s.
sailed.
I just
Spent
can't-
108 million on strikers in 2 years. They haven't got any more money to sign a proven goal scorer.
Yeah,
I don't
you
think.
might be right.
I think just you have to take a gamble on someone.
Take a gamble.
If to take
Roll
a
the
gamble,
dice.
I mean, it depends what you get. It looks like Ipswich are going to go down after the weekend, doesn't
That's
it?
true, yeah.
And in that case, if Delap's available, I mean, it seems pretty clear Chelsea want him. There's going to be competition there. Don't know what his contract situation is, if there's a release clause, if they go down or anything, but you'd imagine 40, 50 million probably do the job.
I can't get behind that, unfortunately. 50 million for Liam Delap. I can't back that.
I think 40 to 50. I don't know. I just think
I know he's done very well. And
he's going to get 10 goals this season in a struggling Ipswich team. Probably done with 12 or something, wouldn't he? And I just think
Rasmus Højlund got
physically
16 goals in all competitions in a struggling
ticks
United
the
team.
boxes. Well, yeah, not this season.
Well, yeah, not this season. And I think we'll finish there for this episode of the Midweek Debate. Thank you very much for your time, Tyrone.
Thank you, Stephen.
And thanks to listeners as usual. Leave a comment, like the podcast on YouTube, Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening, and have a great week. Take care.